Hello everyone! Welcome to World of Yoga Wednesday. If you don't know me, my name is Ashley. I'm the yogi next door, and this is our World of Yoga Wednesday presented by Energy Flow Yoga, where I come on once per Wednesday on Instagram Live and share something about the world of yoga. Oh my gosh, do I look really dark? The sun is really bright today, so I'm gonna have a lot of backlighting, but I think you can see me okay. So, today on World of Yoga Wednesday, we'll be talking about yoga and meditation, which sounds a little bit redundant, I know, because meditation is yoga, and yoga a lot of times is meditation, but we'll be discussing a little bit more in depth what meditation is, what it looks like, what does it do for your mind and body, and then how the practice kind of developed, how it's related to yoga, and how you can use both of these to improve your life. So without further ado, I'm just going to jump right in and get started. I have my notes here, a lot of notes about all of the benefits of meditation, because I wanted to present this in a sort of scientific way, not just like my opinion, like, yeah, meditation makes you feel great, but like specifically what is happening in your brain, and why it's so powerful. So there have been a lot of claims made about the importance and the benefit of mindfulness and meditation, and with the best intentions, some of the studies have kind of been not necessarily disproven, but not necessarily fully proven either. So I wanted to present this in a nice scientific way these are all the claims I'm making are backed up by scientific research. And if they're not, if there's still some fuzziness, I'll clarify that. So just want to say that right away. And that's why I have all of these notes, because I have all of the information that I want to share. And I'll probably I'll link to when I post this replay. If you're watching on the replay, I will maybe link some articles or studies that support some of this research if that's interesting to you guys, because I love reading about all the scientific research. But without further ado, let's get right into it. So what are the benefits? Well, maybe let's first define what is meditation, because it can look like a lot of different things, and there are many different types of meditation, many different ways to meditate. So specifically what we're talking about today, and I'll kind of clarify different types as we move along when we're discussing specific benefits and how you can get those benefits. But we're talking about mindfulness practices today. So mindfulness, just breaking down the word mindfulness, it's getting a clear connection to your mind, being more aware of what's happening in your mind and reacting in a more intentional way. So that's put very simply what we're discussing when we're talking about meditation today. So some of the benefits of mindfulness practices or mindfulness meditation. I'm just going to jump right in and start reading them. And then if you're joining live, I'd love to hear if you have any questions or comments, maybe personal reflections or experiences with meditation. I'd love to hear all of that anytime. All right, so first, mindfulness practices meditation help sharpen your attention. So there have been a lot of studies that have shown that long-term meditators, people who've meditated for a long time or who meditate consistently, have a lessened startle reflex. So that means they have better focus. So our startle reflex is what happens in the brain when there's a new stimulus in our environment. So let's say I'm sitting here writing in my journal, talking about, okay, tomorrow, making my to-do list for the day, and a bird flies by the window. Well, that takes my attention. It actually produces like a startle effect. It's called a startle effect in the brain and distracts me from the task at hand. So when you're a consistent meditator, and it's even shown, I think, from one practice of thought observing meditation, your startle reflex is dampened. So you're less easily distracted by external stimuli. And then also when you are startled, oh my God, this is like a tongue twister. Also, when you are startled, people who practice meditation are shown to more quickly and easily release the distraction and return back to the task at hand that they're focusing on. So that's really cool. I've definitely noticed this in myself, just for my own personal reflection on meditation. The more I meditate, the much easier I find it to focus on one task at a time, because my husband always says that I'm very easily distracted, and that has definitely been true in the past. Might be in the future, I'm not sure. But I have found that when I am consistently meditating, I find it much easier to focus on one task at a time and ignore external distractions. So that is our first benefit. It also has shown reduced mind wandering, which is kind of like saying the same thing in a different way, that your mind is less frequently wandering during tasks or activities. And it also improves your ability to solve problems. So that kind of is all about sharpening your attention. It improves our ability to solve problems by helping us see the entire picture of the problem more clearly and ignore extraneous information and only focus on the important or essential information. So that's how it can help us solve problems better. All right, so the second main benefit, which I think is super important, is that meditation helps increase our resiliency to stress. So there definitely been a lot of claims like, oh, if you do meditation, you'll feel super zen and chill and you'll never be stressed again. Okay, yes, that is true in one way, and no, it's not true in another. If you're experiencing a super stressful situation, it's not that you can just pop down onto the floor, start meditating, and you're going to all of a sudden feel like totally chill and zen and let everything go and just ignore the stress. That is not necessarily true. But it's shown that with consistent meditation practice, your brain is more resilient to stressful situations. And also, so like when stressful things happen, you're able to more quickly recover and more easily recover from that stress. And then also you just find things less stressful. Like if you have never meditated and a situation happens, like you're carrying your groceries and the bottom of the grocery bag blows out and all of your groceries get scattered all over the street. So let's say that takes you up to like a stress level 8. Well, if you practice consistent meditation, that's still going to be a stressful event that happens, like an irritating event that's disrupting your day. That's a stressful event. But maybe instead of an 8, you're down to like a 6 or a 5. So that is how, it's not that it makes you like completely just, you never experience stress. Of course, like we can't control external circumstances that happen in our everyday life, but it can help us recover better from stress. So how does that work? Like how does sitting in meditation for 10 minutes a day make me then more chill, like when my groceries are scattered all over the sidewalk? So specifically what's happening in our brain is that meditation practice dampens the activity in the amygdala. So the amygdala is a piece in our brain. I'm not a biologist, or I'm not like a brain surgeon. I don't know all this technical everything about a brain, but doing research about meditation has taught me a lot about like how our brain works and how we experience so many things in life, in our everyday life. So the amygdala is kind of like at the center of our brain, in the bottom, kind of like in the core of our brain, like really in the middle of the brain, and near the base. And it's thought to be the center of where we process fear and external threats. So like where our brain is taking in information and then processing things as, oh, that's something we need to be fearful of. Oh, that is something that's threatening me. So when we practice meditation, our amygdala senses are just simply dampened down slightly. So when we feel that bag of groceries slip out of our arms and, the bag explodes out the bottom and everything goes tumbling, yes, of course, that's a stressful event, but our amygdala doesn't see it as stressful as it would if we're not practicing meditation. And then, it also increases the connections between our amygdala, so that same fear processing center, and the prefrontal cortex. So the prefrontal cortex does like a lot of stuff, but in terms of meditation, it's where we are reasoning, It's where like most of our higher cognition is happening. So I believe, correct me if I'm wrong if you know about this, but I believe it's the last part of the brain to form. So it's like as a baby is maturing, this is kind of like the last thing to happen. It's our reasoning, it's our judgment. So when we have increased speed and amount, just simple quantity of connections between the amygdala and the prefrontal cortex, our amygdala, which is already dampened, remember, our amygdala is already seeing things with a little more calm, we can say. Instead of sending our prefrontal cortex like message after message of fear, threat, fear, threat, fear, threat, like you need to be freaking out, what's happening? Our amygdala sends more messages, and our prefrontal, because the messages are dampened, our prefrontal cortex then has the chance to evaluate and judge, is this something I actually need to be afraid of? Is this something that's a legitimate threat? And that increased communication in our brain just simply helps us see things a little more clearly with a little more perspective. Because obviously dropping your groceries on the ground would be super annoying and stressful, but it's also not the worst thing that can happen during the day. So when we have that increased connectivity in the brain, our brain can evaluate things a little bit more clearly. All right, so that's kind of the most technical part. I hope I didn't go on too much. I hope I explained that clearly. So, all right, so the third main benefit that I think is super important about meditation is it has been shown to for our brain to have increased. Sorry, I was getting my water. I'm like, I need to take a drink for a second. All right. So, benefits of a meditation show increased compassion, which I think can be super important in this world that we're living in, because I think so often we're in this me mindset. But practicing meditation has been shown to increase compassion, specifically getting into like, well, what do you, like, how can sitting there just breathing increase your compassion? Well, there's a type of meditation called loving kindness meditation, where you are focusing on focusing on the thoughts and emotions of loving kindness, acceptance, compassion, and sending that out to people either that you know or maybe strangers. So that type of meditation has been proved to help us feel less uncomfortable in the presence of suffering. So maybe when you see a homeless person, for example, we're all kind of prone, our brain natural response is prone to recoil because we see suffering, and our brain's reaction is get away from that because we don't want that to happen to us. Get away from that because if you're near that, maybe you will experience a threat. Maybe it'll be a fearful situation. So our brain's natural reaction is to recoil, move away, step back physically, but also like emotionally, mentally cut off from that stimulus. So the way that this meditation helps us be more compassionate, and not only in our emotions but our actions, is by helping us feel less uncomfortable around suffering. It also not only increases, like I was just saying, not only increases our willingness or our mental comfortability around suffering, but it also increases our willingness to actually take action. And this is supported in studies. People who regularly practice loving kindness meditation end up actually taking action in the world, in their lives, in helping people more. And that could be as simple as, when you see, sorry, I'm ripping this distraction, mind wandering, of ripping this tag out of my slipper. When you see a homeless person on the street, maybe you do give them your change. Maybe you do give them $1, whatever that might be. Maybe you just say a simple word to them. It doesn't have to be like literally giving money, but that actually corresponds to taking more action of kindness in your life. It also, just in terms of increased compassion for ourselves, meditation is linked, and not only loving kindness meditation, but our thought awareness or thought tracking meditation, where we're sitting and listening to our thoughts, observing our thoughts. It actually which is kind of like going back to what we were talking about, the first benefit of sharpening your attention, less mind wandering, which translates to less rumination about what's happening in your own life. Like less rumination, less worrying about what's happening in your own life, less anxiety about like this obsessive like, oh, well, what if this, what if this, what if this, what if when I'm walking home with my groceries, my bag breaks again like it did last week. There's less rumination, which just leads to more compassion. Because you're having less selfish thoughts, it could be described that way. You have more compassion for others. All right, so the fourth super important benefit of meditation is improved mental health. Who doesn't want better mental health, right, guys? So this is one benefit, one section, one part of meditation that has potentially been over exaggerated. So it's not that if I'm someone who suffers from depression and like severe depression and anxiety, and I just start meditating, my depression and anxiety is just going to disappear. That has not been proved in studies. It may be true, which we may find. I don't think that that's the case, but that has not been proved in studies. It has not been proved. And if someone is making that claim, they probably have good intentions and wanting to help people, but it's just frankly hasn't been shown to be the case. So how can meditation improve our mental health, and what are some realistic expectations that we can set? If you are someone who suffers from depression or anxiety, like what are some realistic expectations you can have around your meditation practice? So personally, I teach in my meditation with yoga, it's to be used in conjunction with other treatments. So if you're somebody who's suffering from depression and anxiety and you're already seeing a therapist, you're already maybe taking medication, this is something else, another tool in your toolbox to use when you're having a depressive episode or an anxiety episode, or you want to avoid those things. Using meditation in conjunction with your other treatments can be like a helpful addition to your practice. So I would also say, like, if you are someone who's just like, not that you suffer from anxiety or depression, but you're just kind of like going about your life, and sometimes you experience stress and you want to have less stress, and sometimes you want to, sometimes you experience anxiety and you want to have less anxiety. Meditation can definitely be useful in combating those thoughts and actions in the brain through the other benefits that we've already explained, like how it helps sharpen your attention, it helps you become more resilient to stress through the actual changes happening in your brain. But also, if you never exercise or move your body, if you eat, only junk food and drink Coke all day, if you get 3 or 4 hours of sleep, it doesn't matter if you meditate the entire other 20 hours of the day, it's not going to help your mental health without looking at the whole big picture. So it's important to consider meditation like one piece of a very large pie of things you can do for self-care, for self-love. So that's what I have to say about meditation and mental health. No, it is probably not going to cure your depression or your severe anxiety, but it will be one extra tool you can use to help teach your brain to be a little kinder to yourself and others. All right, so another way, speaking of others, a fifth benefit of meditation is improved relationships. So meditation, first talking about like a romantic partner, so your husband, wife, girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever, your partner, your spouse. Meditation has been shown in couples to produce less drastic cortisol spikes during conflict. So there was a study done, it was done like over a significant period of time with couples, and they would have therapy where they discuss while their brains are all hooked up and they're being monitored, heart rate, blah blah blah, all that good stuff. And then they would like have the couple discuss like a recent argument, and then they have them practice and measure their cortisol levels, which cortisol is, think of cortisol as our stress measuring. So high cortisol means higher stress. So when they're measuring their cortisol during that time, marking it on the calendar, and then having the couple individually practice meditation over a period of time, then have them discuss a new upcoming argument or a recent argument that they had again, their cortisol levels were significantly lower. And not only that, after they completed the argument or completed the discussion or what is seen as the conflict, their cortisol or their stress levels returned to their normal resting rate much quicker. So not only did it decrease the stress of that exact moment, but it also helped you recover from that stressful event quicker, which is kind of saying the same thing again when we're talking about our increased resiliency to stress. But it's not only with yourself, it's also in relation to other people. So kind of along that same thought pattern, moving to the relationships between parents and children. So same kind of concept. If you're a less stressed parent, or if disruptions and stressful events occur during your day, which they do for everybody, obviously, especially the study in question specifically was studying parents with toddlers or parents with children with mental disabilities. So children that need, whether it's the stage or their ability, that need extra attention, extra focus, and might be a little bit more, I don't know if challenging is the right word, but have more needs than maybe an average child or an older child. So it was talking about how, the study was talking about how parents obviously recover better from stressful situations when they practice mindful meditation. And it also even showed that without the children even practicing meditation, mindful parents or parents who practice mindful meditation had better behaved children, because children are learning from us, from the second they open their eyes, like sponges, absorbing everything we do, everything we say, mimicking our every action. So when they see you practicing more patience and calm with yourself and others, they are automatically kind of absorbing that way of thinking. Really cool study. I probably will link that one for sure in the comments when I post the replay. All right, so a sixth and final benefit. There are many, many benefits to meditation, but these are the 6 I chose to share with you all today. So the sixth and final benefit of meditation I chose to share today was that mindfulness meditation is linked to reduced bias. Very interesting how this works. So a few different types of bias, which I'll discuss. So being mindful was markedly showed, oh my gosh, what am I even saying? Markedly showed a reduction in prejudice. Specifically, this study showed a reduction of prejudice against Black people and against elderly people. It also showed a decrease in unconscious bias. So if you don't know what unconscious bias is, it's a natural system in our brain that evaluates situations, evaluates stimuli, and then kind of tells our brain what to think about it. So if you are a white person and you grew up in a predominantly white neighborhood, and you see a Black person as, I guess different would be the correct word, but your brain might perceive it as strange, or, obviously different, but strange. Your brain is unconsciously biased to think like different is bad, because your brain is trying to protect you from threats. It's just like the natural way that our brains work. So there are a lot of interesting studies about how unconscious bias works. And if you've never heard of this, or have never really thought about it in terms of yourself before, I encourage you to do your own research about what is unconscious bias, how does it work, how can you work on recognizing it in your own thinking, and then how can you actively choose to change those thought process. So super interesting. I won't get too much into that because I'm not an expert in understanding unconscious bias, but mindfulness meditation shows that you are able to more easily recognize your unconscious bias. So when you're a white person and you see a black person and your unconscious bias in your brain goes, ooh, stranger, kind of like stranger danger, like we tell kids, like stranger danger, your brain, when you're practicing mindfulness, is more aware of your thoughts and going, oh, no, it's not a stranger, it might be a stranger, but this is not like a threat. This person, just because they're black, does not need to be perceived as a threat. And this might be happening like subconsciously. But when you're practicing meditation, that is what meditation helps you work on, is just like noticing your thoughts better. And I think this study talking about the reduced bias was specifically talking about observing thought meditation. So that's when you're simply observing all of the thoughts running through your brain in that moment during your meditation. So that type of meditation helps you become more aware of your thoughts, which helps you recognize your unconscious bias. And then obviously when you recognize that you're having those thoughts, you can choose to turn away from it. During this, on this concept, before I move on, this concept of unconscious bias, that just occurred to me. This summer, the 10% Happier podcast did a meditation challenge where they had like different meditations every day, and they did a whole section on understanding unconscious bias, meditating specifically to become more aware of your unconscious bias, and then like choosing, obviously, because of course if you're aware of it and then you're still going to be like, no, I'm going to be biased, I want to be, well then obviously this is not going to help you. You have to be willing to recognize your faults as a human and change if you so desire. So but it was super interesting, so I recommend checking out that podcast as well, and I'll link all this stuff so you don't have to like be scrambling to take notes. But the 10% Happier podcast, super interesting, in their meditation challenge over the summer was really cool, and talked a lot about uncovering your unconscious bias in your thinking processes. So not only does it help us have less biased behavior, actually was shown in their study, it actually I misspoke. The mindfulness, so not only were people shown to have reduced prejudice and unconscious bias thinking, but it also showed that it affected their behavior as well. So not only did it affect their thinking, their attitudes, but their actual behavior. So it can make a difference in your relationships with your community, with your coworkers, with people who are not in your immediate family, or even in your immediate family maybe. But it makes like an actual perceptible difference. Perceptible? Is that a word? Perceptible difference in how you're acting in the world. So very interesting. All right, so not only did the mindfulness meditation reduce bias in terms of our bias with it revolving to people, but it also reduces our ways of biased thinking. So, for example, an example of biased reasoning or biased thinking is called the sunk cost bias. So this way of thinking is staying invested in a losing proposition. So I always think of the first example that always pops into my mind when trying to understand, well, like, what does this look like in our brain? Like, what is an example that I can understand what she's saying? The sunk cost bias. So let's say you're playing, I was going to say poker, but I really don't know the rules that well of poker. But let's say you're playing poker, and with each card, put down onto the river, you're saying, like, you have decreasing chances of having a winning hand. Like, your chances, you can see, are going down and down and down with each move of the game. And instead of choosing, so our brains sometimes, or depending on the circumstances, have a bias to stay invested because we have hope, basically, because we have the flaw. I don't know if you consider it a flaw, but we have the flaw of optimism in our brain. So our brain is saying, like, oh no, I'm going to get the card I need. I'm going to get the role I need, whatever it might be. And so that sunk cost bias is our tendency to hold on when we should be letting go. Which is why casinos make so much money, because humans don't want to give up. You don't want to stop playing or give up or withdraw from the hand. You want to keep going. So that's our tendency in our brain. The sunk cost bias is our bias in our brain to stay invested when we should get out of that losing proposition. So mindfulness meditation has been shown to, sorry, I'm just making sure I'm reading this correctly. It leads to just better and more clear, more analytical decision making, just because you're better at observing your thoughts and noticing, like, am I staying in this game just because I'm really excited and I hope I'm going to win and the pot's really big? Or am I staying because I actually have legitimate good chances to win? There you go. Pretty simply. So, all right. So those are my 6 main benefits of mindfulness practices, a meditation practice. And just to kind of review, meditation can help sharpen our attention. It helps increase our resiliency to stress. It increases our compassion. It improves our mental health. It helps improve our relationships with partners and with children, and helps reduce our bias with others and in our own brain. So meditation does a lot for us. And how is this related to yoga? Well, yoga and meditation are kind of one and the same, not necessarily one and the same thing, but meditation is one of the 8 limbs of yoga. So if you don't know what I'm talking about when I say 8 limbs of yoga, I actually did another World of Yoga Wednesday where I discussed what are the 8 limbs, the 8 pieces of the yoga puzzle. And meditation is one specific yoga practice. So meditation, obviously, it's hard to trace, might say, exactly like where did meditation come from? Where did it originate? And, but it is largely considered to have originated in India and originated as kind of the original practice of yoga. I think in Western cultures, we consider yoga, like we picture, a skinny athletic type person doing a bunch of like weird physical poses, kind of like a contortionist almost, which the asana or physical practice is one portion of yoga, but meditation is a huge part of yoga. And really it's thought until a few thousand years ago, which is still a lot, but the physical practice wasn't even part of yoga. So meditation is thought to have originated around 3000 BCE, which, how can you measure? It's not like they had their book calendar and were like, today I invented meditation. Could have been even largely before that. But really, just in terms of like understanding why meditation is part of yoga or how the two go hand in hand, the purpose of yoga, which we kind of see outlined in the Yoga Sutras by Patanjali, the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, which is kind of considered like the modern text of yoga, the yoga Bible, if you want to call it that, if you feel comfortable with that term. The purpose or goal of yoga is to calm the fluctuations of the mind, calm the disturbances in the mind. So you can see very clearly how meditation is a natural, I would say even required or necessary part of that practice. If you do just the physical practice of yoga, if you only do like a power flow yoga class and you don't want to focus on your breathing and you don't want to listen to your body, well, you're going to hurt yourself, first of all, if you're like trying to do these really complicated poses and not focus and not listening in to what's going on in your body and your breath and your energy. But yes, you're going to get a great workout, but you won't have the necessarily, you may or may not be able to have that deeper connection of the purpose of what am I doing here? How is this beneficial to me, not only physically, but mentally as well? So that is the beauty of yoga and meditation practice, which again is kind of one and the same. We already went over all of the amazing benefits of meditation, and I hope I've convinced you to at least give it a try if you've never tried meditation before, or to keep at it if you are an avid meditator. I just want to plug myself for a second. So every single Monday, I just started this week, so 2 days ago, I started Mindful Mondays. This is where I come on Instagram Live just like this at noon and share a meditation. Just share, nothing else besides just that, just a few minutes for you to connect with yourself, connect with your own mind. And every week will be like a different meditation, but not necessarily even the same. Sometimes will be the same style, some will be different styles, just kind of depending on like our theme, our class theme of the week. So I encourage you, if you're interested in meditation or want to give it a try, go to my page, The Yogi Next Door, and check it out. There's already the one from 2 days ago. It was a simple mindfulness meditation, getting connected to our breath and our body in the present moment. So it's about 10 minutes long. I think all of them I'll aim to be between 5 and 10 minutes because I think that's a good amount of time where it's not obtrusive into your day, but it also allows you to really take a moment to tune in. So I encourage you to check that out. And if you like it, if you have questions, feel free to comment on the replay. If you're watching on the replay, you can always, of course, message me privately as well if it's something that you don't feel open to sharing with the world. And I cannot wait to hear what you all say and think about meditation and to hear about your experience. So check out the Mindful Mondays every Monday at noon, Instagram Live, and of course it'll be shared to Facebook and everywhere else that stuff can be shared. And I hope you all have a wonderful Wednesday. Thanks for joining me. Thanks for learning something new today. I'm proud of you. And yeah, I just want to say, as always, thank you for joining me. Thanks for tuning in. And I hope you have a wonderful Wednesday. Namaste. Bye, friends.